Good evening. How are you all doing? Great to have you here if you're watching live, and likewise, if you're listening back, it is great to have you with us. I'm really excited as today is not only a Monday evening, and I'm really glad Monday's over and done with already. I also happen to have a bottle of the new Philharmonia Orchestra gin, which I'm not being paid to plug, but is very, very nice and something completely different. But today, I'm going to be speaking to two people who are really, really fascinating in what they've been up to during lockdown, which I'm really excited for, and to share with you their stories. So, Katharine Dain and Sam Armstrong, how are you both doing?
Very nice to see you. Excellent. Glad to be here.
Likewise. And so one thing I do at the very beginning of all of these is to kind of just put you on the spot a bit, if I'm being honest. So for both of you, how would you define yourselves?
You go first.
I like
Not
that
very
you
nice.
find some time straight away. Very smooth.
Well, I mean, there's been a running joke this week in the last couple of days. The two ways of defining ourselves as the press around our current project begins to trickle in. There have just been a couple of things, and we are hoping for more. We are expecting more. But one positive comment was that we were one website's CD of the month. And so we've been joking that we define ourselves as the CD of the month. And the other was not a positive one. And the sort of takeaway quote from that, which was a review in French, was hélas. And so we are either the CD of the month or hélas, depending on who you ask.
Maybe it's something sort of more positive and existential, and alas, like my ears will never hear anything as good, and it's just been very, very.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah,
Let's
you can
pretend.
spin it whatever way you want.
Absolutely.
Which is always a unique thing. And so for yourself, you're a soprano, and what sort of music do you mainly sing, and what do you normally do when things are in normal times?
Oh, normal times feels like another life, but I do a wide variety of music. I sing, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of Mozart, a lot of contemporary music, a lot of orchestral projects, a lot of chamber music, a lot of strange, nerdy music that I find or somebody else finds and they think that I would be really into, and so then things come from that. Yeah, a lot of different stuff. And so when we were, we have known each other a long time, Sam and I, and have many repertoire interests that we've been exploring during this time.
Fantastic. And for yourself, Sam, apart from alas, how would you define
it? I am obviously a pianist, but I think maybe this is slightly unusual or becoming less unusual, I hope. But I love song, and I love chamber music, and I love playing solo, and somehow I feel like certainly in the past there's been a certain pressure to define yourself as one or the other, or to really take a route or to establish yourself down a certain route. And I think I've really kind of kept at all three areas, with people that I'm interested in working with. So I think maybe that is how I would define myself, as hopefully just a musician that is doing good music with good people, rather than having to fit into a preset box or area in terms of which areas I'm allowed to do projects in. Yeah.
Certainly, and I think something I've mentioned before on the podcast is how we went through sort of this strange 100 years of speciality, where we could be a quartet player or an orchestra player, and in reality, it was never like that before 1900. I think we're sort of coming full circle, which is, I think there's so many benefits musically is to being someone who can be exposed to so many different types of music and have these different skill sets that can inform other genres. But for the both of you, this is definitely a leading question, but how has lockdown and COVID been for you? Because you both have quite a unique experience of it for collaborative musicians.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we had a concert scheduled mid-March, I think it was, in the Netherlands where Katharine lives, and the concert was cancelled. I called Katharine as everything was kind of starting to shut down, and the day after the concert was cancelled, and I said, well, I have this flight still, and nothing is happening for me certainly in the next 2-3 weeks. Shall I just come anyway, and we'll get a head start on learning this new program that was scheduled for June in a concert, which also didn't go ahead. So we sort of began like that, and 2 weeks sort of went on, and my other commitments ended up being remote and online, and I ended up staying 6 months, 5-6 months in the end, actually, and it sort of made this this project actually possible. And you know, normally living in different countries, especially with a chamber music partner that you like a lot and that you really enjoy working with, the time's always short, and you always have to put it together kind of on the faster side. And of course, everyone comes in very prepared, but you don't really have the time to really go from the start of the process together, or to really you know, to really delve as deeply as you might like to, especially when it's interesting poetry or interesting other topics. So it's been not to say that it was without challenges or without other difficult things to deal with that, you know, that most musicians have been facing during the time of not really being able to work as normal. But we were very lucky that we had another musician in the building, you know, and that we could drag each other out of, you know, when the other one was sort of a bit deflated or particularly disappointed from a cancellation or having an existential moment about the future of the music industry, for example. So yeah, it was good. We could sort of pull each other out of what would have been the worst, I think, and also having someone to bounce off and to inspire you. I mean, also even just hearing someone else practicing is a sort of, it's a cue to remind you that you should be doing it too, and all of this. So it was how do I say, it was as positive as it could have been under the circumstances. Yeah,
definitely. And I imagine it must have been slightly tricky if you were only originally planning to go for 2 or 3 weeks, in terms of you must have gone with a relatively light suitcase, I imagine.
Yes, I don't know why. I brought a concert suit, which turned out to be really useful, actually.
Yes,
so I don't know why. I had a moment of clarity or lucidity before I left. But yeah, I mean, I was on hand luggage basically, and yeah, it was I had to make
daily hand washing.
Many loads of laundry later. Yes, here we are.
I guess it's one of the benefits of being on tour, is it kind of gives you those skills in the first place of how do you get one T-shirt to do 4 weeks through Europe, which is potentially a benefit. But as duo partners, obviously you know a lot about each other. Did you learn anything through this period that really helps inform you, how you collaborate and you're performing, and sort of, did you discover more about yourself musically that you've been playing together so much more?
Yeah, I think so. We kind of developed a higher level of trust with each other, actually. I mean, it was always there, but I think it's interesting, you sort of see the other person's process more, actually, I think was for me the biggest change, actually, because I think, you know, you come essentially polished, finished when you come to, you know, less than a week before a concert and have to put something together. And especially with the Messiaen cycle we did, when I arrived, I mean, you know, that was not scheduled till later. I hadn't learned it yet. I mean, really. So I was sort of going from zero, trying to, you know, learn all these cluster chords and modes and all these things. Well, yeah, true. Yeah.
I guess that's the downside, is that your duo partner will know when you haven't practiced, and they realise, I swear it's like one day to play tomorrow, and I haven't heard them doing anything.
I mean, it's real, yes.
Yeah, it's there's nowhere to hide. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was such a strange time. It was, of course, nothing about it was like what a normal process would have been, and in some ways, you know, we were as panicked and lost as everyone. We lost as much work as everyone. It's, you know, it was very, very difficult many times. And so there would also be days, of course, you know, it only became clear later that we would turn this work into a project that other people would hear, and that we would, you know, treat like something sort of out of normal life. We recorded a CD, we marketed it as a CD. You know, it's following recognizable steps now, but that wasn't always true. In the beginning, we were just rehearsing music when we could manage to. You know, we knew there were some deadlines that we could get a head start on. We weren't always working on this music. We were just looking together at a lot of things that we love. And sometimes there would be some days when all we could really manage to do together was read through 2 or 3 songs that we already knew and loved. And one of us might be feeling a little bit vulnerable, that was okay, and the music could help that, or sometimes that could also trigger it, and then we would just stop and pour a glass of wine and cook something, and that would be
Mm-hmm.
it. And so, it's maybe a little bit easy to look back on the months from March to now as being inevitably all following a certain sequence of events that lead to a CD release, which is this week. But of course, that was far from clear for a certain amount of the time. It did also mean that we could be more, as you said, be more trusting of each other and more patient with each other, and we could include each other in the process more than I think has ever been possible for me. This music that we ended up recording it's highly complex. It takes a lot of time to assimilate and to understand and to really hear everything that informs your understanding of what you're trying to say. And normally you would just try to do that as best you could on your own. And we got to do that together, which was something really special. But it also exposes each other's weak points.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different level of vulnerability or honesty when you're really in the same house and sort of seeing everything. But I mean, it's I think it took us to a better result. I mean, I think another interesting side is that, a lot of CD projects are planned very, very far in advance. And actually ours was really not. And actually it was we decided to first work on this program that was scheduled for June, which is similar to what ended up being on the CD-ish, but sort of tweaked and it evolved a bit. But yeah, we didn't decide exactly to go ahead till late May, I think it was. And then we recorded in August. So it's been quite a fast turnaround, but also we decided quite late, and I sort of had a sort of get out clause about the Messiaen. I really wanted to be sure that we could do this music really well because it's very particular and it deserves to have a great hearing. So yeah, it was interesting how all of that kind of transpired, and it was certainly not our initial plan for that to do a recording or to have that project. It kind of happened organically.
Very much so, and I think especially for not just musicians, but everyone during the last sort of 9 months of COVID, it was sort of, you didn't live month to month, you almost lived week to week, and you couldn't really plan what was going on sort of 7 days later. So I think it's really fascinating that you managed to sort of carve a way through to create a project in the middle of all of this with so much uncertainty. So the recording itself, what is the recording that you're releasing this week, next week?
This week, yes, Friday this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Fantastic.
Yes, thank you. It's a CD that is called Regard sur l'infini, or A Gaze on the Infinite. That is a collection of French songs that's centered on this major song cycle of Olivier Messiaen called Poème pour me. And that was the piece that we knew that we should start to work on when we had time together, because it takes a lot of time and we had wanted to work on it for a long time together. So the rest of it sort of grew out from there. Quite literally, the program is symmetrical and opens out from Poème pour me, which is in the center. And it includes music of Debussy and of Henri Dutilleux, 2 early songs of his, and 2 songs of a composer that was a real discovery for us and has taken a lot of digging to find information about, whose name is Claire Delbo. And what we know about her, the thing that people, if they know about her at all, they know that she was the first wife of Messiaen, and she was a violinist. Mm-hmm. And she was the dedicatee of his Theme and Variations, which is wonderful and somewhat more well-known than his other music. So people know a little bit about that, but she was also a composer, and her music is not widely known at all. And I had heard a little bit of her songs on another recording, found them really interesting, and ended up really trying to look into her and find out as much as I could. And we included 2 songs that were actually premiered on the same concert as the Messiaen Poème pour me, by the same performer. So it feels really snug in that way. And the program opens and closes with songs by Kaya Sariaho, also in French. She's the only non-French nationality composer on the disc, but she's lived in France for many, many years, and she writes a lot of songs in French. So that's the project. Fantastic. It went through many phases.
I can certainly imagine. I guess there's almost some sort of symmetry to what our current existential crisis of sort of staring out into infinity and not knowing what's going on in the next few months as well. So there's an extra time through all of that. What have you found different in the process of doing a CD in lockdown, particularly in releasing it? Because I imagine for yourselves, you've been lucky to be quarantining together for the recording process. But in then putting it
Yes.
out to the world, how has that been different?
It's all of it, and also the preparation musically for sure has been quite solitary. Where normally we can rely on feedback from audiences when you do the program live, you can rely on quite a lot of friends hearing bits of it or looking over your stuff, or having chats with people just through the course of your normal work and other things, and getting a read on what people think. And we've had to do all of that virtually, or most of it virtually. And in a way that makes it feel very safe, because it's a process that's very grounded in the truth of our preparation and our process. And of course, that's a luxury. But it's also, a little bit intimidating that we're launching this thing this week, and we're starting to see press come out, and we're starting to hear what people think and really engage with others. And it's the first time a lot of people could possibly have heard it. And it's, I don't know, it's a little scary.
Very much so. And does it feel like you're almost releasing it into a void, because you're not going to be able to see someone at a concert and either flog them a CD or even hear their feedback directly, and likewise be able to speak to people about it? Is it slightly unusual?
Yeah, we're quite lucky, actually. I mean, I don't know how well. The whole situation is really complex, obviously, around the world with the pandemic. But the Netherlands somehow is allowing concerts for 30 people. So we are doing our CD release concert in the hall where we recorded it, actually, which is a beautiful hall, big hall in Nijmegen, the Concertgebouw there. So that we'll do 2 concerts in one night, actually, for 30 plus 30. So that feels like a miracle, honestly, that can happen. We're doing certain things that might not have been virtual are going to be virtual, in terms of, I think we'll be on BBC In Tune, and it'll be the first time that I've not done it in person, that I've done it sort of down a computer, which is slightly unusual. But that's how things are. And it does feel a little bit, how do I say? Not like we're releasing it to avoid exactly, because there's things happening and interest, but it does feel quite odd that you don't feel, I think it's sort of hard to feel a sense of arrival or momentum actually with it, because it just feels like it's all quite virtual. I think we'll be happy to do a concert on Friday. That would be nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's always a danger when you do anything digital, regardless of what it is, that as soon as you press post or publish all those things, it's then sort of, have 1,000 people seen it? Has no one seen it? Was it good? Is it not? And it's hard to get that instant tactile feedback in the same way you would in a concert hall, which is certainly tricky.
And especially now, because there's such a saturation of virtual content, actually. I think that in the first month or two, there was a glut of people just putting whatever online, or companies airing past performances, and everybody really had nothing to do at first, or a lot of people had nothing to do, and everybody was completely at sea. And so people did watch a lot of things online. We posted a few songs on social media just for fun, just, because we were together and we were doing music that we liked. And we got a reaction from that, because at the beginning there was a lot online, but everybody was watching everything. And now it feels as though we're back to normal in certain ways, where there's a lot of competition for people's attention once again. And a lot of organizations have gotten quite savvy about how to air things in a way that in some cases can bring in a little bit of money, and can feel like you can make an occasion of it at home watching a performance. So it's a little strange. We're all still getting used to it.
Certainly. Are there any things through that process of you moving online or doing little bits, or even how you're sort of releasing the CD, that you're wanting to continue going forwards, that when we go back to being normal, that you think, oh, this is a good idea, we can continue to do this? Or is it that you're wanting to try and have 2 different situations, so one before COVID, one during, and one afterwards? Which I'm very aware is 3 things that I just said.
It's complicated.
I'm a cellist, I can't do counting.
It's complicated. I mean, so Katharine is originally from the States, and we met studying in New York, actually together. So I think what's been really nice and quite touching is that through streaming and through online things, that it's been possible for friends in the States or colleagues to sort of hear us or keep an eye on what they're doing, on what we're doing, and vice versa as well. And that's actually been really beautiful and actually really touching to see, and in a way that then there's no limit to geography in a sense, actually. And I think when streaming things, like we did a live stream from Studio 150 in the Bethlehem Kirk in Amsterdam in May, and they have fantastic microphones, and it was a beautiful setup, and actually it felt like a concert, and it reached a lot of people that it wouldn't have reached if it had just been a live concert in Amsterdam. So I do think there is a human side to things being online, actually, oddly, and inclusivity aspect as well to things being online. So it is. I think there is an upside to. Of course, there's chemistry of people in a room and live performance that that isn't interfered with by technology, or that isn't perhaps diluted by not incredible microphones or by things like that. Of course, there's I don't think there's a replacement for that, but I do think that in terms of reach and in terms of accessibility, I think there's a lot that's positive from things being additionally available online and streamed and things.
I have one thing to add to that, actually, which is that I think something that I found incredibly valuable, especially in the beginning of all of this, although it's not gone now, was that people were releasing things online that were not at all perfect, and that were, in some cases, not even approaching the level of polish that they would expect of themselves in a normal situation. But there was a kind of vulnerability and a rawness to what was being explored. As everyone was in the same situation, everyone was flailing, everyone was looking for humanity in themselves and in what they were seeing on their screens and in what they were sharing, in a way that I found beautiful. And I think that the industry was ready for a disruption of the expectation that we all be perfect all the time, which in any case is not possible. Even in a recording process, it's not possible. That's recording a CD is about as close as you can get to creating your own idealized version of something. And even that is still a snapshot. It's still, you show up on any given day and you have to create what you can on that day, given the circumstances. But because of how prevalent recordings are, and that's the way that most or many people consume music primarily nowadays, there's an expectation that we all be kind of perfect. And something that I think has been really great about this time is that people are taking a lot more risks. People are putting out things that are, maybe not, I don't mean to say that things are half-baked, but things are people are a little bit more willing to show their process and to show their vulnerability and their humanity through that. And I would love to see that continue. I think people have taken risks in programming that I find very beautiful. We've watched a few recitals online together or a part of singers trying out music that they might have had a hard time pitching to a venue in the past, because everything is very dependent on what people think can sell. And now it feels to me that there's a lot of space to try new combinations, new repertoire. I just find it very refreshing. And I hope that stays. I hope that kind of bravery stays, that people are planning on a much shorter scale now for all the internet material. And it's not, 5 years out, which contracts you'll have. Not that that was ever my situation. That's like a handful of famous singers. But I think that there's a freshness to what's going on that I would love to see stay.
I very, very much agree with both of you on both those parts. And just to add to Sam's point, I remember watching the Royal Scottish National Orchestra's live stream concerts. And there's two people I spotted who must have known each other from school or something, but they hadn't seen each other for 30 years. And you could just see this entire catch-up conversation going down on sort of part of the stream.
Oh, great.
It's absolutely hilarious to watch. But I can Catherine likewise completely agree. And that particularly in training in classical music, we tend to go for this idea of perfection as not just the goal, but the lowest bar, and that's what you need to reach. And until it's perfect, you must keep it in closed doors and never show anyone what it is. And I don't think it's one beneficial to the process of learning the music and working out what goes wrong in the performance and what goes right. But also equally, it's all part of that growing journey.
Yes.
And as you say, we now have this flexibility of program whatever you want. And if you want to go and do an entire concert of Berio, it's entirely possible. You have to try and pitch it to a venue who probably wouldn't want that sort of thing. And you can now find your niche and your tribe online in a way that you couldn't before. And you can find all these people who are very into certain specific things, which I think is potentially a really good and fascinating point going to the future. And also I'm fascinated that concert length is changing as well. And all of a sudden we're very much going down to 60-minute concerts with no break, and potentially look out what's the best way of doing that rather than being set into 45 minutes break, 45 minutes, and it has to fit into this very structured and formulaic process. So I think it's fascinating to see how things can potentially change. So then leading on from that, what are you then planning to do next? Either sort of disrupting in a big way or little bits. Or is it that you can't see past Friday the launch, and that's like the next thing?
Well, there's certainly some truth to that, of course. But I mean, I think we both have a quite open mind. One thing that's certainly true about this project is that we've been friends for a long time, close friends, and we've gotten to work together some of the time, occasionally, but since we were students, we haven't lived in the same place. And so we haven't gotten to build repertoire together in the way that we would have always wanted. And this was suddenly this amazing opportunity to do exactly that, and to spend a lot of time really allowing the duo to mature, to develop. And so I think that we're very much hoping that we can do this program live, because actually we have gotten to do it once. Oh gosh, only once.
Well, yeah, no, but once in public, and then forcing friends on iPads to listen.
Oh yes,
we sort of made our own artificial kind of preparation process for recording, but yeah, and we would. I mean, it's. I think especially for a live audience, it's a very special journey, the way the program fits together, and we took a lot of care about how it all joins. So I think it is something that would be nice if people could experience in person that way. So yeah.
So we're hoping for that, but we're certainly not limited in our ideas to that. I mean, there's a lot of music that we want to look at together, and I think both of us, there's a lot of uncertainty about what performance will be possible in the longer term. In the shorter term, both of us have some concerts that haven't been canceled yet, mostly, for the next 6 months or whatever, mostly chamber music for me.
We have two together, right?
Yes, we have two together, and then there are others for both of us. So we're sort of hoping very much that we can continue to, even if it's things that are planned on a shorter, as we say, a shorter timescale than usual, we now have so many ideas and so many things that we have been loving looking at that I guess we're just hoping that we'll have plenty more chances to do songs for people.
Seriously.
In rooms all together, if possible. I mean, we'll stream whatever we have to.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah.
And maybe there will be formats and ways that will come about that will even give us opportunities in that realm that are not possible for a live audience. That's starting to happen too.
Fantastic. And then just before we go to the shameless plugging section, is it going to feel very strange when you're not quarantined together and you go back to having to rehearse at distance or only once every few months and things?
Well, it's been interesting because I left Rotterdam. I mean, we're in Rotterdam, so right now, and I left sort of mid-September because I had other things I have to do, and I came back Friday, I think it was. Just
a few days.
Yeah, and it's quite odd to be back. I mean, because we're preparing the same music, and I feel like I'm kind of in a parallel universe because it was this 5-6 months where it was just tunnel vision on this program and sort of trying to finding our way back in. We're rehearsing each day and but it's still sort of coming back. It's different. So I mean, of course, and then of course for future concerts, it's not like I can take a 6-month sabbatical, for a new program. So so it's interesting that. Yeah, it will be different, but I think we have this basis of really knowing each other extremely well, and also I think there's an art to how you talk to your colleagues and like how you rehearse together and like what gets the best out of the other person, and you learn very deeply what. So I don't mean this in a cynical way about how to get the best out of someone, but how to give someone space to to be their best or to find their best and most imaginative solutions, but then still talking about general parameters and concepts that can get you unified enough that it feels like it's really interactive and that you have a unified vision of a song and things like that.
It did make it very clear to me when it's been 2 months that you were gone, I guess, and then he's now back, just how lucky we were that whole time. I found it much harder to motivate myself, much harder to really want to put in the kind of hours that I was doing while we were in the same house. I found it harder in every way, and I found it a bit sobering because I realized that although of course I could essentially understand, and we talked to many friends during the quarantine time, and we were both very in touch with people, and everyone was struggling with different things, and I had been very compassionate toward friends who didn't have the same chance, I think. I hope. But I could suddenly understand in a very real way what it meant to be alone, to not know what your performance deadlines were, to have all of your motivation come only from yourself. It's so much harder. And so I think it made me very aware of just how unusual and lucky our situation was.
Truly.
And it's a gift I don't take for granted at all. So we'll see how we can do that in the time coming forward, how we can find moments to continue to inspire each other.
Yeah.
Well, it's been absolutely incredible chatting to you both and hear about your journey. And you say it's something very special. So I honestly can't wait to hear what the fruit of all this is going to sound like, which is fantastic.
Thank you.
So on to the shameless plugs. If anyone listening or watching wants to go and listen to the CD when it's released on Friday, but also to come and find out more about you both, where can they find it on the internet?
We both have individual websites, katharinedain.com and samarmstrongpianist.com. That we can send you links if it's easy to post them somewhere. The most current information about availability will be posted always on our own websites. There's been a little bit of a COVID-related delay in distribution, unfortunately, which of course, although very understandable, means that I can't instantly tell you up to the minute where it is, but it will be available on all platforms in a matter of days. And so if you're wondering, on our own websites, there will be information about where to buy. It should be on all platforms and all digital streaming services.
Fantastic. Well, I honestly can't wait to hear. So it's going to be fantastic, and I'll be waiting with bated breath. But thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And as usual, if you want to listen back to any of the other podcasts, you can go to david-taylor.org/podcast and see all the back catalogue there, as well as anywhere on the internet where there are podcasts. Well, thank you both for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hope to see you again both soon.
Thank you very much. It's been our pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.